Welcome to Manibil, and this is a follow-up to my video Dualism, Monism, Combination and Dissociation video. And again, Mr. Göran is ticking in on on the discussion board, on the comment section. And thank you very much, Göran, for that. You are taking a lot of time to comment to my videos, and I appreciate that. I'll try my best to answer these good questions, and cause what's it called? You sort of mix it up with your own thinking and so on. Interesting. And the first one, there's one that refers to minute 8, one that refers to minute 10, and one that refers to minute 26:45. So I'm going to take them in temporal order, and the one that is at 8 o'clock, so to say, is on the metaconscious level. You might say that you give the maybe I should run the maybe I shouldn't. On the metaconscious level, you might say that you give the experience meaning, but on the phenomenal conscious or pre-metaconscious level, the pre-metaconscious level, you can't get to that. When what I'm saying, what I call the name I use for what you call metaconscious is awareness. So there's awareness of my experience, but I cannot be aware of my awareness. I don't believe that. That is too abstract. That is an abstraction created within awareness, right? There's something going on that in the me or in the I or whatever, that which also has awareness, that is different from being aware of. It could be I'm philosophizing. That's not necessarily being aware of my experience as such. But that is not meta-awareness or pre-meta-conscious or whatever, right? I don't believe that. Then you can keep going in infinite regression into meta, right? It's too much. I think you have to stop with awareness of experience. And within that awareness, there's also some aspects that does philosophy and science and planning your tomorrow and whatever, right? That's fine. That's so it's just like don't make it too complicated just because you create a new category, and then I'm philosophizing from that new category to explain the prior category. So it very quickly gets too convoluted, right? And start to look something like meta-ethics, right? Which is completely blown out of the water, right? But on phenomenal conscious, I don't know what what you're referring to. Level 1 could argue that the experience doesn't primarily present itself. Well, yeah, you could say that it presents itself in the sense that you are not in control what is being presented, but using the term present is based on the axiom that you are having a representation, right? So you have to state that you're working from an axiom that is you're treating your experiences and what entails from them as presentations or representations, right? The experience doesn't primarily, it's again these fluffy boundaries, right? Present itself as a thing. No. What you have at the ground floor is your reduction base, in my opinion. And that is, in my opinion, the qualia, which is color, sound, taste, touch, and feel, right? When you're talking about a thing is what my awareness adds using the cognitive apparatus, you could call it, which is also an aspect of this awareness, right? Awareness is sort of kind of complicated, right? Or at least there are many aspects to it, one of them being aware of your experience. Then it attaches a concept to it, which you label as a thing or object, right? That could be elephant, for instance, right? Then the mind identifies elephant. It's not because it knows there is an elephant there somewhere in the experiences. There should be a representation of an elephant, but it does it of its own accord, right? You're not in control whether or not you experience elephant. Even if you can imagine yourself an elephant, that's just a direct reference to that cognitive apparatus you're using in order to identify the actual elephant. Something along the line of Hume's impressions and ideas, right? Instead, the experience itself comes with a certain dynamic quality. Certain, you mean a particular? Okay, so it comes with dynamic. What is that quality? Is it a color? Is it a sound? Is it a taste? Is it a feel? Is it a touch? Or is it a combination of these? What is that dynamic quality? What is it? What is you're trying to point to something in my experience? But what is it about your reduction base that you're referring to calling quality? Is it qualia? Then it must be a sound, a color, a taste, and so on. Right? What is it? Give me an example. Right? So you can't make a reduction base, and you might not have the same reduction base as me, but this is my philosophy we are discussing here, right? It's my channel. It's my philosophy. So I'm referring to my philosophy, right? That if it's quality, it's one of these five as qualia, right? So I can't make up a sixth sense, a sixth quality called dynamic quality, right? Because what I'm referring to is my reduction base, which is the five senses or the five qualia. I can't look at my five qualia. Look, there's a sixth qualia called dynamic. You can't do that. That's an invalid step in your philosophy, man, right? Otherwise, give me your reduction base so I understand what you're talking about, right? Example, if you, right? This we, be careful with the we, right? Okay, so you're saying, if I suddenly come across, and you could come across the same thing, that's why I'm saying we. Okay, fair enough. Suddenly come across a lion. What do you mean come across? You mean if you cognize lion within your experience, right? Then in the initial moment we instinctively experience the quality. We have to agree. You don't have access to my experience, right? Quite the problem of other minds. So if you come across a lion, what you're saying is, or what you should be saying is, my experience make me cognize lion within my experience, and I think lion is a representation, and I am treating lion as a representation of something outside. We are not coming across lion, right? You have a cognition of lion in your experience, and you're treating that lion as a representation of something outside, right? We instinctively experience. No, that's not instinctively experience. You're mixing up a lot of terms here that has nothing to do there, in my opinion. Of danger to life before we metaconsciously differentiate the thing lion from the environment and give it some additional meaning or static quality. Well, yeah, I understand that. But that is based on genetic phobias, or whatever you want to call it, right? That's built in to this particular cognition, a kind of fear reaction or kind of whatever, right? When you see a snake, you're like, woo, shit, right? You didn't decide, should I go woo or shouldn't I go woo, right? It's just instinctive, right? It's this fever reaction or whatever you call it, right? When you see a ball come flying towards your face, you duck, right? It's not like you say, should I duck or should I not duck? Should I have to check out my reduction base and in order to then, hit by the ball, right? So there's a part of your awareness that works instinctively without you being able to reason about it, because there's too short time frame. There's too short between events here, right? In order to squeeze in some philosophy. And your system apparently works in a way where it does shit without you, being able to reject it or whatever, right? That doesn't prove anything about the lion. Just because your lion gives you an almost infinite reaction to it doesn't explain anything about the lion, right? The thing lion from the environment, yeah, but the environment is also your experience, right? Be careful that you don't think this way, which I think you're doing. You're saying, because I made an action where I treat my experience as representations, now I can place those representations outside my experience. You can't do that. Because then you're going back to materialism, man, right? You have to stay with this is my experience. There is no we experience, right? There is your experience. And the way you clarify, or potentially could, come to some agreement about your more than one experience, is by saying, okay, I'm working from the axiom that that thing over there is identical to me, or is the same kind of thing as me. Another instance of the same type as me that might have a similar kind of experience. I'm going to communicate with it, right? That doesn't prove anything, because that's also a part of your experience, right? And that's why I'm saying that this kind of dynamic in this situation with the propositions and experiences and so on, and axioms about external worlds, has to come together in a cohesive manner that doesn't make you claim any access to that external world. Right? It's a combination of knowledge, truth, propositions, objectivity, agreement, and so on, right? Okay, minute 10. I would say that the experience comes to itself or appears to that which experiences. Is that just a convoluted way of saying I'm aware of my experiences? With a quality of outsideness? No. That's just what I pointed to before. A quality of outsideness. Okay, now you're violating the reduction, or at least my reduction base, right? Yes, fine, you could say that there's a quality of outsideness, but then you would have to present your reduction base if it's different than mine, which is the 5 qualia, right? Color, sound, taste, and so on. 5 qualia. What qualia is outsideness? You don't have a sixth sense that is outsideness, right? And if you have, please, and if you had, you couldn't explain it to me because I don't have it, right? That's something you add to it. The outsideness is just you saying I'm working from an axiom. You have to be clear what you're doing. You want to say there's something about my experience I can't control that gives me outsideness. No, I don't buy that, because if you have a reduction base, you have to clarify what that is. And if you're referring to my reduction base, that's the 5 qualia. There's no sound that gives me outsideness. That's just a sound. There's no taste that gives me outsideness. That's just a taste, right? And combining these various stuff, 5 qualia, that none of them alone have outsideness to them. You can't just combine them into something and say, aha, therefore outsideness suddenly arrived by combination. You can do that. So there is no outside quality. That's the problem. You are pointing to the problem. I am trying to point out that this is bad thinking. There is no outsideness quality to your experience. Either you're referring to a sixth sense that I don't have, and you can't explain to me because I don't have it, or you're saying that there's some way that the colors and sounds and tastes gives you outsideness, and I don't buy that. Just by that, point to the color. Give me an example where I can experience, outsideness. There are colors, sounds, and tastes, and so on, right? There is no outsideness. And if there is, that's something you are adding axiomatically without realizing it, that you are adding it by habit or by axiom or by whatever you would call it. Just state that it's an axiom and we are on board, right? To which the meta-consciousness adds additional meaning. No, that is meaning. Outsideness is meaning. That's not further meaning. You don't need outsideness and then meaning. outsideness is a meaning you add to it. You're not handed over outsideness. That's just habitual thinking. Right? And that's what idealists would tell you. One could possibly argue that this is built into the experience itself because it has an evolution. That now you're just regurgitating that evolutionary argument. There's nothing that says that an idea of a theory of evolution should entail some kind of outsideness, right? That doesn't follow, in my opinion. What evolution could be is, I would say, evolution is not responsible for experience, but evolution might be responsible for the composition or the overall quality or the composition or the limitations or whatever. I'm lacking a good term here, right? It's put together this way. You have colors and you have sounds, right? And they manifest in a particular quality. Those have possibly become the way they are because of what we refer to as evolution. But evolution is not responsible for you having experiences. I don't believe that. That's just a coincidence, basically, right? And it's sort of, it turned out, that experience was actually something that was useful. But it's not like evolution is sort of programming the future. That sort of is also a fallacious understanding of evolution, right? Okay, let's not go too deep into that. When a predator hunts its prey, that's an interpretation of your experiences, right? It looks from a third-party perspective as if the predator instinctively experiences its prey as being outside itself. I agree with that, but it's still your interpretation, right? It's an interpretation of you are adding an axiom that says that is an standalone existence within. I am, from my axiom of an external world, I'm saying this is a representation of something outside that works in the same way as my experience does. The dynamism of my experience is also out there. You can't say that because it's a representation. That a representation means it's not the same out there, right? There's not prey out there, or you can't say there's prey out there. You can't say there is instincts out there, instinctively outside itself, and so on. It's all a part of your the story you're telling about. You so badly want to transfer the structure or your understanding of your experience to be also in the outside. You can't do that, in my opinion. You have to stay on this side of the axiom, right? The mega axiom, right? So please. Okay, then you said, I don't trust this reporting. Reporting can never be the foundation of metaphysics. Isn't all our philosophizing founded on reporting to ourselves the content of our experience? No, that's not a report. A report is between you and you communicating with one of the experiences you consider someone as having is a representation of some kind of standalone existence outside yourself that you can communicate with, right? You're not reporting to yourself. You're trying to shake the foundations here, right? With this kind of convoluted. No, philosophizing is not reporting. Reporting is when you're trusting language to be a representation of mental events and trusting those reports to be accurate representation of mental events you do not have access to, right? That's reporting. I don't buy reporting as a foundation for any kind of philosophy, right? That's why you can't hand philosophy to somebody else. Hey, you should think like this, right? Because then you're letting your experience tell you what to think about those experiences. That's a circular argument, right? So you have to have your own philosophy. That's why I'm constantly pounding on this, right? Okay. And you said there must be something different from mind that is responsible for that dissociation of Walla, then you have dualism. This is a cognitive trap that automatically sets up a subject-object causal relationship for something to happen when it could just as well be a spontaneous phenomenon that occurs in the same stuff. Yeah, it could be, but that's all fabulation. That's pure fabulation. It's just like when Bernard Castro said there's zero evidence for the multiverse, right? Popping in and out of existence these gazillions of other universes. There's as little experience of dissociation as there is of the multiverse, right? It's the same kind of level of this, and I don't buy any of this dissociation shit, right? It's the difference between it's his crackdown argument for why it's all mind, right? I don't buy. It's not a good argument. It's not even an argument, I would say. It's wishful thinking, basically, right? No, what I'm saying is, if you're looking at a glass of water, right? How could you possibly say, yeah, there's a dissociation between that part of the water and that part of the water, and the dissociation is also made of water? But if water on this side, water on the other side, and that which is the dissociation or responsible for the dissociation must also be water, how does it do that? I don't understand it, and I'm not buying this dissociation shit, the DID, dissociation disorder, right? That somehow a mind can split in two halves and then still function as if it's one mind, just where it's sort of speaking to itself about the other one or whatever, right? I don't buy that. That's just an interpretation of reporting. I don't buy it, right? No, but I'm saying, I think that in my understanding of the way that it's argued for dissociation, that is an appeal to dualism. The dualism is just that it's the same thing on either side of the dissociation, but the dissociation must then be of a different kind. Otherwise, it couldn't dissociate. It has to be of a different kind. Otherwise, it cannot establish a dissociation, right? I don't buy it. You can't keep water separated from water using water, right? And then they would say, yeah, but that's just your everyday experience. That's just a representation. I'm talking about the actual mind out there. Oh, okay, so you're going into that mysticism, right? You're jumping beyond your axiom, right? It doesn't work. And in this free-for-all world where you can come up with all sorts of shit you want to be there, I'm not buying it, right? If I can't experience it, I don't fucking care about it, right? If the experience is the only thing we have access to, but we infer that it is a representation of some non-accessible stuff, well, yeah, don't necessarily call it stuff. You don't need to call it anything, right? Then I think it is fair to ask oneself to what extent there is a point-to-point relationship between the represented and representation. Yeah, you could... think it fair to ask oneself, yeah, you could ask, but what purpose would it serve, right? What good would it do, right? What would you need it for, right? Does it change your tomato, right? You could maybe say, yeah, it may change the way I think about the tomato, but the fucking tomato is still the same, just like you're saying. Yeah, I come across a lion. Well, if I come across a tomato, right? And I eat it, it's still the same fucking taste, same color, same sound, and whatever. It doesn't change. It doesn't matter what is out there beyond the tomato, right? I'm eating whatever it is because I trust the cognition of tomato, right? I don't want to lose faith in my cognitions based on that I can't get to the actual thing, right? And then the risk of going into this platonic realm of forms that are much more important than the actual lived life with various instances of the same cognitions, right? This tomato is not important because it's the idea of tomato out there that is important, right? Careful, mate, right? one way to investigate. No, you can't investigate that which is beyond your experiences, man, right? Oh, you so badly want to go into this mysticism, right? Would be to, metaphorical speaking, treat the experience as a black box. Treat the experience as a black box. Why the hell would I want to do that? With all kinds of inbuilt filters, compressors, and memory that alters the input from unknown before it presented as representation in consciousness. Why would I need to do that? I mean, it's more important for me how to figure out whether or not I can eat a fucking tomato. That doesn't change either. No matter what black boxes and shit you can come up with to correlate some kind of existence outside that which you do not have access to, that eventually just turns out to be the same tomato anyway, right? I want to get to a moral principle. I don't want to go backwards into something I don't have access to, right? I want to do something with my philosophy. I don't want to be stuck in this platonic, mystic circle jerk myself, right? Numerous sensory organ experiments show that the black box provide incomplete and false representation. Sensory organ experiment. Okay, that's reporting, right? You're having this magical instrument. You do this, do that, and then you could present it on a computer screen that is created in order to represent that you expect there to be, right? You can't use this in metaphysics. That's moronic, Göran, right? It's this, but if I do it this way, maybe able to do something. I go, and I decide, okay, this is a representation of that which I can ever, doesn't work, right? Just leave it the fuck alone. This is at least a hint that there is not a 100% point-to-point relationship between the represented and representation. Okay, whatever, right? And by the way, the process by which the unrepresented becomes represented, Owen Barfield called figuration. Well, good for him, right? Yes, it's figuration, yeah. When you go down to the grocery store, right? After you have been doing philosophy, do you stop and think about what the hell is behind your tomatoes and your mozzarella and your oregano and your flour, your Tipo 00 flour? No, you just fucking buy it, right? You might check whether the dates are correct and there's something wrong with the tomato. It has a dent or it's rotten or something like that. But that's just about the quality of the tomato. That's not whether or not it's a tomato, right? And there's a lock-in effect with these. If you experience lying, it doesn't start to go on off usually, right? It stays lying. When at first you have cognized lying, it takes a lot for it to stop being cognized as lying, in my experience, right? That's because the mind says there's something important here. It says to itself, basically, because it has evolved to do it this way, right? It's important, it's important, it's important. You might want to do something, and sometimes it just does things, your body, you run away or what, right? That's much more interesting and important than whether or not there might be some correlation between that which I'm experiencing and that which I do not have access to, right? Just focus your energy on what you can actually deal with. And what you can deal with is your experiences and what you decide to do with them, right? Okay, see you in the next one.